Honest J. Nowak. Oh yeah.
A pleasure to meet all at last, and welcome back to Flying with the Foam on HJN. And you know what? When it comes to Flying with the Foam on HJN, you know what to look for. Wait. Oh. Here we are. This is the same old notepad that I've been using for a while now to determine what HJN content I could talk about pretty much. So, let's just get into some more territory here with all that good stuff. Because now it's time to talk about the Talonstrike for episode number 669. And here it is. This right here is the Talonstrike. Yep, Talonstrike in all its glory. Oh gosh. Wow. I did not expect that to happen, so let's put in a different dart in the chamber here. Because I do have a lot that I want to mention about this thing, in case you haven't already noticed right off of the bat. This right here is a reskin of the Zombie Strike Side Strike, and even a double pack of, well, Elite Blasters that were also known as a Side Strike, which is kind of constituting the problem of, well, trademarks and all that good stuff. Zombie Strike can keep the name Side Strike to that blaster, but this right here is the Talonstrike, so I feel like that it's a step in the right direction. And I mean a step. It's not really all the way because, well, I've already talked about a certain blaster before that happens to harbinger the term Talon as a separate name, pretty much. That's right. Mega AccuStrike Talon. I don't really have it here to showcase with me, but just to give you a little baseline on the whole entire thing based on how trademarks should be evaluated when it comes to naming Nerf blasters. And it's not just with Nerf blasters, but it's also with hundreds of other things in mind. So, Nerf blasters are pretty much going to be at the core of like this particular subject, but this is the Talonstrike, which came as part of the AccuStrike series, of course. It came out in 2018, a couple years before the Talon did. And the Talon is a little more than just a bulkier sized, modified version of the Mega Big Shock, which happened to come out a few years ago, and establish the fact that there can in fact be a Mega styled Jolt EX1. And the Talon is, well, it may seem like a bit of an upgrade because it has a little more dart storage and all that, and it has some more rugged, sort of bulky aesthetics presented to it, but the thing is, there should have been no fooling around with any of that kind of stuff, because, well, this one's a Talonstrike, and yet you have a Mega AccuStrike blaster called the Talon. Talon and Talonstrike. Could it be any more confusing? I mean, sure, you could always go ahead and like talk about its full name. Hey, this is the Mega AccuStrike Talon, and this is the AccuStrike Talonstrike. Yeah, it seems like a big difference in most ways, but when you really get down to it, the names themselves, Talon and Talonstrike, it's almost like they're trying to distinguish different blasters here and there by just taking out some parts of a name, yet not realizing that there's a process out there called half-bunning. Of course, that does apply well to most other things out there that I've talked about as well. If you don't remember when I've talked about the Zulu Cavalier, which is supposedly named the AccuTrooper, that's another big case right there. Because from early on with the N-Strike series, there was a blaster called the Alpha Trooper CS-18. Then with the Elite series, a little while later, there was also an Alpha Trooper, which I'm always going to be referring to as the Tango Renegade instead. Because I do like to stick with that sort of format pretty much, of having, well, a military letter represented, and then something that represents, well, a military. Whether if it's a subterm or if it's something else related to that. So, Alpha Trooper and Tango Renegade for the N-Strike and N-Strike Elite. And then eventually there came an Elite XD version of it called the Alpha Trooper. Again, 3 times in a row that we have an Alpha Trooper. Could it be any more confusing? They're reskins. And they come with different attachments and the like. I mean, there was no excuse at all. But that one I'm simply referring to as the Beta Commander. And you know what? When it comes to Commander, that's also been something that's been happening a lot recently with another blaster out there, which I won't talk about right now, but I will eventually get to it when the time does come. So I could probably address that part of the issue one more time. But going back to Talonstrike and Talon, this blaster is a Talonstrike. There was no excuse for, wow, not calling it the same exact thing as a side strike. So I guess they knew what they were doing, and they heard us talking about that problem. So that's a good thing to know, because I've been talking about this sort of problem for many, many years. And even to this day, we still have this sort of problem going on. But maybe not as often as it used to happen. So I guess Hasbro knows what to do these days, which is a good sign, but if only we just have them take all of our words instead of parts of them, which, again, is half-butting. Which is not a good thing at all, I mean. I actually have called that Mega Accustrike Talon the Tear-Oath because of this problem, so hopefully that brings a lot of closure to that part, because wow, I already got sidetracked that much now. I haven't really began to talk about this blaster entirely, other than the fact that this is a reskin of the Side Strike. But most of the time, that's sort of what happens. I tend to go off on another tangent for a little while, head off on another path, but eventually I find my way back to the same fork that led me to that path to begin with. So now I can go on to the other path, which would be to talk about the blaster itself, the one that's right here. Not the Tear-Oath, not the Beta Commander, not the anything else like that. So, the Talonstrike right here is an Accustrike blaster. And with that, it came with a series of, well, darts that had the Accustrike heads on them that advertised as being more accurate. And so, I could not really be sure what to expect from something like this. But here's what I do know. This blaster sure does do a pretty good job, even without Accustrike darts. Because, well, it fires pretty hard. It essentially recycles some of the same sort of parts that it utilizes to prime the blaster, as it's auto-retracting on the top. It's very reminiscent to some blasters out there, like the Scout or the Reflex. I do like this sort of top slide on here that like goes through the whole length of the blaster, because, well, it can accommodate most sizes of hands, pretty much. Maybe all of them, you never know. But otherwise, the Talonstrike does a pretty good job at delivering some good performance and all that. Probably gets some accuracy with the Accustrike darts in mind. You got dart storage right below the muzzle here, reminiscent of the Night Finder, or in more recent terms, we got the Fire Strike, the XD Fire Strike, which is the Inferno. I'm going back to that problem again, aren't I? And then, of course, we had the Voltage, which had been more specifically known as the Volt from the Elite 2.0, which I'm calling the Super. So Super Volt being the latest of that kind of blaster. But this is like the latest that we got so far of, well, the Side Strike series of blasters, or could I just say the Slider series of blasters, where it has this sort of slide right here to prime the blaster, and the Reflex and Scout are just to name a few that are part of that family of blasters as well. So that's pretty much what this is. But again, this is a pretty good blaster for what it is. Nice and small. It's decently priced actually, because you can get this in value packs in most places. And I was able to find one of these with a bunch of extra darts and a targeting system pretty much. A value pack for less than 20 bucks. Not a bad idea pretty much. But now's the time I go ahead to present my little closing statement to this whole entire thing. The Talonstrike is pretty nice. And if you can't get past the problem that's associated with trademarks, then of course you can get some enjoyment out of this blaster. For me though, it depends. But I will say for sure that there really are lots of other blasters out there that I'm certainly going to want to talk about sooner or later. But if you want to see more, go down to my channel. Make sure that you like, subscribe, comment, follow me on social media, and stay on the Hollywood side.